Well, that was the stupidest party known to mankind. I mean, what kind of sick human being would have even considered putting a lobster in a cake to be okay? Oh, it's okay, Craig. You'll do better next time. Well, now that stupidity is over with, I can sit back, relax, eat some Cheez-Its, and maybe play a based game. Ah! Oh my goodness, a new Sam and Max? I can't believe it. This is so epic. Well, actually, of course they were going to remaster Season 2 as well. And as your local #1 Sam & Max superfan, I obviously hopped on it as soon as it came out. Ignore that. Alrighty, so we're back to talking about Sam & Max. It's been over a year at this point since the remaster of Sam & Max Save the World came out, so I'd recommend watching my video about that game if you're unfamiliar with this beloved series, so that I don't have to repeat a bunch of stuff I said in said video. But to try and sum up things quickly, I love Sam & Max, specifically what Telltale did with this franchise. I say this every time I bring up the lovable freelance police, but Telltale's point-and-click trilogy for the duo are my favorite point-and-click adventure games ever. In late 2020, a remaster of the first season, Sam & Max Save the World, was announced and released, being developed by former members of Telltale, forming the new team, Skunk Ape. Save the World was a really great starting season, bringing Sam & Max back from the dead essentially, and the remaster was pretty much doing the same thing for a new generation. Now, while the game held up great and the remaster polished up the visuals really well, Skunk Ape decided that they wanted to change some stuff to make the game less dated. And let me just say that they handled it with the grace of a Taco Bell employee at a funeral. They weren't upfront about various dialogue changes, including outright censorship, and while it was pretty minor in retrospect, it still really rubbed me the wrong way. With all that said though, Season 1's remaster is still a good way to play the game in the modern era. Okay, can we talk about the new stuff now? Yeah, shut up, we're getting there. As for Sam & Max's second season, Beyond Time and Space, which came out a year after Save the World, there's not too much interesting history revolving around its development. It was handled the same way as Season 1 originally was, being released episodically over the course of a few months, but this one has 5 episodes instead of 6 like the previous game. But that one missing episode is made up for due to Season 2's episodes just being longer. Anyway, enough about the original. Shortly after the release of the first remaster, it was made pretty clear that Season 2 was getting a remaster as well. I was pretty nervous about whether or not Skunk Ape was going to repeat past mistakes, but it's pretty obvious that these guys do in fact care about the series, which was reassuring and made me hopeful that they'd handle this one a little bit better. And it's going to need it because while Season 2 is another really good game, it's a little more rocky than the previous outing, as we'll get into later. So Season 2's story is kinda disorganized, somehow even more so than the script I'm writing right now. Just like the first season, the game is split up into multiple episodes. Season 1 was all about Sam and Max getting wrapped up into some big hypnosis conspiracy that snowballs until it becomes a huge worldwide catastrophe. Season 2, on the other hand, feels a lot less interconnected at first. The first episode of the season, Ice Station Santa, begins with Sam and Max returning from their previous caves, and their office gets attacked by a giant death robot, nothing out of the ordinary here. You get introduced to their neighboring private investigator, Flint Paper, who proceeds to do nothing for the rest of the episode, and after shutting off the stupid big guy, you get one of the best opening lines to any game ever.
This hitman wasn't sent by some lowly goldfish. It was sent from a bleak and desolate wasteland by the most ancient and powerful opponent we've ever faced. A hairy, bloated, pagan god. Santa Claus!
That introduction kicks so much balls that I've become infertile. Every episode has this badass opening sequence and title card. It's so cool. Season 1 got a new opening theme for its remaster. Both versions are really good, but I'm so glad that they kept Season 2's the way it is. And after that, whoa, oh my goodness gracious! Every case has an opening like this. You know, some sort of evil entity from hell visits the neighborhood, and Sam and Max have to travel to a variety of wacky locations to resolve the matter. From performing exorcisms on a demonically possessed Santa Claus to stopping a zombie invasion from Stuttgart, Beyond Time and Space's scenarios are a lot more akin to classic Sam and Max media. Save the World focused on more general stuff, such as television networks, politics, the internet, and I think we all know that mixing that stuff together is more dangerous than smoking a fat blunt at your local Shell station. So it's nice to see such a drastic change of scenery, and it leads to crazier and, quite frankly, more hilarious scenarios altogether. The story really starts tying together by episodes 4 and 5, and if you stick around, then I'll show you why in a little interesting segment that I have planned later. As for the general gameplay, it remains largely the same. Just like the previous game, you'll be exploring a bunch of crazy areas, talking to a bunch of morons for information and funny dialogue, and collecting items to solve problems and whatnot. The mechanics haven't been expanded on at all, which, like, yeah, no shit, they weren't going to change it that much. It's a point-and-click adventure game. I mean, I don't know, maybe they should take the Danganronpa approach and have you spell stuff to progress. I mean, that seems pretty fun. But the lack of new mechanics doesn't make it stale by any means, due to the change in structure for each episode. In every episode of the first season, you'd explore the main area of the episode, but you'd also have to revisit the main street to see what Bosco and Sybil were up to. Bosco and Sybil were both integral characters that were always doing something stupid and had their own puzzles that you had to solve to progress. Now, while all of their idiotic escapades were fun, doing that for 6 episodes straight did seem a little repetitive, and by the time I got to the last episode, I was pretty tired of the formula. Season 2, on the other hand, shakes things up a lot more. Sybil and Bosco are still here, but you don't have to do something with them in every episode. Sybil's business isn't even open for half of the season, too busy focusing on her relationship with the Lincoln Memorial. We've all been there. And Bosco? Well, as for him, he doesn't even run a store anymore. No, instead, he's remodeled the place into some huge conspiracy theorist bunker. He's beyond terrified that he's being spied on by a group he refers to as them.
You scared me!
Anyway, Bosco's fear of them... Bosco's puzzles revolve around his paranoia, such as sending him a gift box with a loud clock inside, or contacting him via radio to spook him out of his store. His puzzles are so good, I love them. Bosco, my dude, if you think that's scary, then any sort of social media platform would be a freaking haunted house with all the days of them's going around. Instead of just relying on these two, we have some new faces in the spotlight. The cops make their grand return with a much greater purpose this time around. They're now offering to pimp out your car for doing some silly-ass driving challenges in a new car minigame. The minigames are really simple and easy. You just need to do them to get a decal for the DeSoto that you'll just turn around and use as a normal item. But you can also replay the minigame for additional decals for the car. You'll get new stuff for hitting special items or getting a higher score at the minigames, and each episode has its own set of rewards. You know, it's sort of fun at first, but quickly becomes repetitive. I played it for a little bit, I got some stickers that the cops probably picked up at Walmart for $2, and then I never bothered again. I know that you can make the DeSoto look pretty sick, but I didn't really see the appeal since it's not like you're going to hang around the car that much anyway. I mean, there's only so many times I can run over poor little Torture Me Elmer before it begins to wear thin. Thankfully though, you only have to play the minigame one time to progress, and it's pretty easy to win. There are also a few other minigames, but they're extremely infrequent and not really worth mentioning since they're so basic mechanically. Like, there's a Punch-Out minigame that's really easy and unsatisfying, definitely suffering from a severe lack of testosterone. Though I noticed in the options menu that you can actually skip these minigames. I don't think that was a setting in the original release. Like I said, they're really easy, but you're not missing out on much if you don't want to play them. Moving on, another addition to the main street is Stinky's Diner, now available to actually walk inside. Stinky herself is a complete and total stuck-up hoe that is a prime example of what would happen if we tried to make Twitter into a human being. I'm gonna make Twitter into a human being! There's this sort of joke that goes on here, where Sam and Max remember there being a different Stinky that ran the place, and this new girl Stinky, it's heavily implied that she killed the old Stinky. It's so good. Her attitude makes for a lot of fun new interactions, and the diner is home to some good puzzles. Like in Ice Station Santa, there's a trivia contest going on at the restaurant, but Stinky's too full of herself to declare anyone as a winner, even if they get the answer right. So you have to examine the other contestants' patterns and thought processes so that every answer gets chosen by a different person, and Stinky has to admit Sam as the winner. With all that covered, how do the puzzles in this game hold up in comparison to Season 1? I'd say they hold up about as well, but it's a lot more mixed. On one hand, there are quite a few bangers in here, but on the other hand, the misses are a lot more off target. I will say that the puzzles are noticeably harder in this game than in the previous entry, for better and for worse. Puzzles in episodes 3 and 4 in particular require you to really rack what's left of your brain. I still remembered most of the solutions from my first playthrough, but I actually forgot quite a few of them this time around. More Better Blues involves a lot of creative use of these portals. Night of the Raving Dead's first set of puzzles involve you making a fool out of this weeb emo dingus Jurgen, and those are all fun. But Chariots of the Dogs wins by a landslide because it focuses around time travel. Not only does it have the most unique structure out of any episode in the series thus far, but there's just so much creativity brought to the table with the time machine. Traveling into various different time periods and fixing problems, or causing new ones. A time travel is sort of like a baby made out of glass. You have to treat it very delicately, because it's really easy to screw it up. So with that said, I just like to declare that this is my favorite use of time travel in any game ever. The game already doesn't take itself seriously, so it just uses time travel as a tool to make the puzzles more fun and the story more crazy. There's one puzzle in this episode where you have to convince the past Sam and Max to give you the recording contract from Situation Comedy, but they need something to get to the moon. So you send them on a wild goose chase across time, visiting various characters you've spoken to previously to hopefully get them to eventually hand over the contract. The solution to this puzzle seems really unclear at first, and all the options you're given are quite random and overwhelming, but if you think about a very specific conversation with a character you've already met before and how they reacted to it, then it all clicks together and makes for an extremely clever solution that I dare not spoil. It's hard as PP, sure, but it's really satisfying when you finally understand it. But on the other hand, due to the game relying on really specific details at times, some of these puzzles can be just a tad bit frustrating. For example, in Night of the Raving Dead, you have to find some holy water for one of the puzzles, and you end up getting it from this ceremonial urn in the office. And I'm like, why duh? Because fun fact, Sam and Max's office is like my closet. It's filled to the brim with random junk they collect from past cases and the souls of the damned, except that they only keep the random junk. And all this stuff is purely decorative and sort of like a joke, seeing their office get more and more cluttered like they're hoarders or something. A hint system was added in this game where Max will sort of nudge you towards the right direction, and you can adjust the frequency of these hints. But even whenever I played the original all those years ago, even at the maximum setting, Max wouldn't really cough up a hint till I started using items on random stuff without thinking, and at that point, I'm already not having fun anymore. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is that having a ceremonial urn actually be used for a puzzle is just dumb. See, here's the thing about Season 2, I really like it, but whenever I first played it, I actually considered it to be the weakest season out of the 3. I had a lot of fun playing it, but there were plenty of times where I just got exhausted from playing it and was frustrated to find out how specific a puzzle solution was. And yeah, I'm aware that that's something that's common with several point-and-click games, but I didn't really feel that way about Season 1, and especially Season 3. And that's part of the reason why I was so late getting around to playing this remaster, among other things. I had a lot of other stuff on my plate. Y'all have no clue how hard it was to set up Peter's birthday.
Did someone say birthday?
Wait, but okay, so before we go on to the next section, let's actually get into the nitty-gritty details behind this remaster. So this one just sort of dropped out of nowhere. Like, we knew it was happening, but the time between the release date announcement and said date was so small that I didn't get the chance to process it, or fit it into my current plans at the time. Anyway, just like the previous game, lots of areas got the glow up here too, and it's even more noticeable here considering the wide variety of locations you'll be visiting here. I really like how in Moai Better Blues, to show that the episode takes place later in the year, they added this cool blue hue to the main street. It looks real nice. But there are even more minor details besides that. In Ice Station Santa, there are all of these awesome transitions you get whenever you enter the toy factory. I had to do a double take to see if these were in the original, and they weren't. They went through the effort to put in so much more minor stuff, and I greatly appreciate it. Oh, and also, I caught a reference to Season 3 in here. I love you guys so much. Some of the characters got some nice touching up too, such as the fan-favorite shambling corporate presence with the glow-up. However, Flint Paper does look a little weird. I mean, Sybil looked different too, but Flint sorta got the boss baby face. And some of the areas are really bright now due to the new lighting. However, there are accessibility options to tone these down a bit, and that's always welcome. Now, in the first season, I ran into some performance issues, but I didn't have any such problems this time around. However, in What's New Beelzebub, there was a part where my cursor just disappeared for no reason, and that made it really difficult to navigate, but simply leaving the room was enough to fix that. Once again, some new songs have been added to various locations, which adds to the already great soundtrack. Finally, and here's the big one, the topic of censorship comes up once again. Bosco's voice actor is still the same as the Season 1 remaster, which, you know, I do miss his old voice actor because Bosco is hilarious in this season, but it's not really that big of a deal. No, what really matters to me is Skunk Ape's honesty whenever it comes to censorship. Last time, they really screwed the pooch whenever it came to handling censorship by not letting the fans know about it, and that made me really fearful about what they would do with the following seasons. And when this remaster was on the verge of release, they actually decided to come clean and be upfront with the dialogue that was going to be changed. I know, bros, it's so sad, it makes me want to cry and pee my pants, but they're being honest about it, and that's what matters most. So, let's take a look at what they removed. Oh, okay. This is so epic, so unbelievable. Beyond Time and Space avoided all forms of censorship. Which is good, because not only did they make a joke about that, but also, this is easily the funniest season in the series, so taking the piss out of the jokes would hurt the game so much. I genuinely feel really happy for the team. It feels so good to know that they care about the series and are willing to take some honest criticism and improve their next product. Anyway, with all of that said, I'm really happy with how this remaster turned out, and I'm proud of Skunk Ape for learning how to interact and communicate with their fan base. The only question left now is how much does this remaster improve what was my least favorite season of the series, and how much has my opinion changed? My opinion on the season as a whole has been refreshed, so I think now's a better time than ever to give my full-on thoughts on Beyond Time and Space as a whole, starting from the beginning. Yeah, it's not really that good. Ice Station Santa really didn't leave a good first impression on me during my first playthrough. The first half of the episode is pretty good though, and has a lot of solid puzzles. Plus, I love the Friendly Demon song, and I personally think that Santa should be given a gun more often.
There was a fearsome demon, very scary form. He was the most
Craig, you used to love exorcism music. What's gotten into you? The second half, however, isn't nearly as fun. The puzzles here are not interesting at all, involving you helping the spirits of Christmas past, present, and future. This whole part just feels really mindless and tedious. I will say though, for a long time now, I felt like putting this episode at the bottom was pretty harsh, and I'm glad to say that due to the good first half, I can confidently rank it a little higher now. And it doesn't help that this is followed by Moai Better Blues. Honestly, this is the closest you'll get to a mid-Sam and Max episode. The case involves Sam and Max visiting Easter Island to stop this volcano, and it's really not that interesting. Some of the puzzles are solid, but the scenario is pretty boring, and I don't care about the location at all. I've never been huge on tropical settings. And you know that when the best character in the episode is Baby Jimmy Hoffa, that we have a very severe problem. I mean, he's good and all, but everyone else hits weak. Also, the red snail puzzle blows. You use a really specific item on a really specific background object that you think is just there for decoration. I mean, this is not fun. This isn't a bad episode by any means, but it hits so weak that it's easily the worst in the season and the second worst in the series, right behind Reality 2.0. Plus, these monkeys literally worship feet, so I think it's about time we move on before I start attracting the wrong audience. These two back-to-back episodes being problematic was what really put this game at the bottom of the trilogy for me initially. However, while it does have lower lows than Save the World, it also has higher highs. Because Night of the Raving Dead is a dang good episode with a great setting and puzzle selection. Plus, I really love Jurgen's voice actor. This game was originally released whenever Twilight was a thing. I just threw up a little bit in my mouth. So they parodied the whole goth, moody vampire thing, and it's pretty funny. Starting here, Season 2 starts getting really creative, with Sam and Max literally dying halfway through. And the fight against Jurgen at the end feels so silly, with the duo getting their bodies mixed up and the music getting so chaotic. I love this so much. It's at the end of this episode where the plot finally begins to take shape, with Flint informing Sam and Max that Bosco has gone missing. And if you thought all this was bonkers already, then boy, you're in for something. Our new trio investigates Bosco's disappearance and find that Bosco was abducted by a UFO with a time machine on board and screwed up a bunch of stuff like a moron. So you travel through time to make sure that Bosco doesn't cease to exist, and you eventually find out that the owners of the spacecraft are a group of mariachi players. Every time a character would say birthday, a random mariachi guy would show up out of nowhere to sing for them. So finding out that these guys are not only the owners of this ship, but also that the explanation behind their out-of-nowhere appearances is that they're traveling across time to sing for birthdays is probably the silliest plot twist in any game ever. And the best part is that they're just all the same guy from different times. After Sam and Max get them to abandon this lifestyle, the ship is set to crash and Bosco's soul is being sent somewhere, so they escape through the Bermuda Triangle and find themselves at the River Styx. And now you realize that every single episode in this season had some part in this soul trafficking thing and hell and whatnot. The final episode of the season follows the duo's adventures in hell, meeting old faces and rescuing new ones, as well as Bosco's from eternal torment. After causing hell's work efficiency to plummet like a YouTuber starting college, and Sam escaping from his own personal hell, Satan is revealed to actually not be the head honcho around here. And I just need to let this cutscene speak for itself.
Who could possibly be more horrible and universally reviled than Satan?
Oh.
The Soda Poppers! They made the characters that nobody likes into the main villains. These guys unironically make for better twist villains than half of the ones I've seen in modern movies and games. So they go out to cause total Armageddon like me and the boys on a Saturday night, and now Sam and Max have to team up with Satan to stage a corporate overthrow to stop the Poppers. What's New Beelzebub is no doubt the funniest episode in the whole series, and probably the funniest segment of any game I've ever played. I genuinely cannot tell you the amount of times I bursted out laughing while playing this for the first time, and even during this revisit. Sure, the puzzles aren't quite as genius as the previous episodes, but it makes up for that with the great writing and being a wonderful finale altogether. It has an all-star cast of characters from throughout the whole series, and the way it follows up on so many other moments throughout the season was beyond satisfying.
Hey guys, you're just in time for the stripper.
Oh no, wait, no, wait, YouTube, no, please don't! And there's a gag where Hugh Bliss, the villain from Season 1, works as the censor now and censors bad words. But there's a part where you need to get some info about the Soda Poppers from Timmy Two Teeth. But the joke with him is that he's constantly getting censored. So you have to replace the censored word list with Satan's grocery list, and then you realize that Timmy wasn't cussing the whole time, which is already hilarious. But now that the censored words list has been replaced, mundane words like soda and vanilla get censored, and now I'm dying. After dealing with the Poppers, everyone returns to Hell for a final battle, Hell freezes over, and Max finally grabs the phone. And every time I think that this episode can't kill me anymore, they repeatedly top every last joke.
Time to take a piss.
But with one final birthday celebration, the Poppers are defeated and Sam and Max head off to Sybil and Lincoln's wedding. I know I didn't do this sort of episode rundown in the previous Sam and Max video, but I felt it was necessary this time around to show you just how good this game gets. It does start off pretty hit or miss, but quickly develops into the most chaotic and fun adventure that the Freelance Police had up until this point. And let me just say for the record, that playing through the remaster made me realize that I actually like Season 2 more than Season 1 now. I really didn't think that my opinion would change at all, considering how point-and-click games aren't really that replayable, but I had a blast replaying this one. I always did really like it, but now I appreciate it more than ever. And I think I have this wonderful little remaster to thank for that as well. In a day and age where most remasters or remakes are either missing something the original game had, or simply don't deserve the title of remaster, it's great to finally find one that lives up to the quality of the source material and makes nothing but direct improvements. The first season's remaster was a solid way to play the game, considering that the original is old and runs on a shoddy engine, but it unfortunately fell into a few of the trappings I mentioned just a second ago and ultimately left a sour taste in my mouth. Season 2's, on the other hand, avoided these mistakes and made me like Beyond Time and Space even more than I originally did. I did not expect to like this revisit so much, but I'm happy to say that that Skunk Ape did a damn fine job. This is a remaster done right, and I highly recommend it to anyone who likes Sam & Max or point-and-click adventure games in general. Whether you're new to the series or a returning fan, I don't think anyone will be disappointed by this. I can only hope that they keep up the momentum for Season 3's remake, if they're actually going to go through with that. Like, I don't even know how they'd go about doing it. Season 3 was just so different, and it would take even more effort than the other two to remake it. And plus, what would they do about the art style? It's not quite as dated as the original two. I just don't know. I mean, whatever they're going to do, I'm now more confident than ever that they'll succeed. Anyway, I'm Luggo the Lugician, and thank you very much for watching, and have a happy birthday.